Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be cracking open a true classic,
Ooh, a classic.
How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Oh, yeah.
You guys have shared excerpts from this legendary guide, and we're here to help you unlock the most valuable,
Absolutely.
actionable insights. So
Yeah.
get ready to level up your people skills.
You got it. And you know what's remarkable about this book?
What's that?
It's how relevant it remains,
Dang.
even though it was written decades ago.
Wow.
We're going to extract those core principles, bring them to life with Carnegie's captivating stories,
I love those stories.
and explore how they apply in today's world.
I'm so ready. Let's dive right in.
Let's do it.
The first principle that jumps out at me is the power of genuine interest.
Yeah.
Carnegie believes it's the foundation of any strong relationship.
And he doesn't just tell you to be interested, he shows you how.
Oh, how?
He tells the story of Edward Bach, an office boy
Okay.
who managed to correspond with giants.
Giants that are who? Like Emerson and General Grant.
Wait, hold on. An office boy writing to Emerson?
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. How did he pull that off?
It's actually pretty simple.
Okay.
By being genuinely interested in their lives and what they had accomplished. Bach asked insightful questions, really listened to their responses, and made these influential figures
Yeah.
feel like their thoughts and experiences truly mattered to him.
It's amazing how shifting your focus from yourself to others can open so many doors.
It really is.
But here's the thing. Are we all naturally good listeners?
Well,
Carnegie throws in a pretty eye-opening statistic from a New York telephone company study.
oh yeah, I remember that one.
What was it?
They analyzed 500 phone conversations, and guess what the most common word was?
I don't know the...
Nope.
Really?
It popped up almost 4,000 times.
Wow, 4,000 times. That's a real wake-up call.
It is.
It makes you think about how often we dominate conversations without even realizing it.
Absolutely.
So how do we translate this into action? If we want to forge genuine connections, we need to become better listeners, ask engaging questions,
For sure.
and truly care about what the other person has to say.
Exactly. It could be as simple as putting your phone down, making eye contact, and actually listening
Yeah.
when someone's talking to you.
That's so important. What are some other ways you can show genuine interest in your everyday interactions?
That's a great question for all of us to consider.
It is. Now let's move on to another essential principle, the allure of appreciation.
Oh, yes.
Carnegie emphasizes that expressing sincere and specific appreciation can be incredibly powerful.
And he illustrates this with a story
Ooh, a story.
about John D. Rockefeller Jr. during a heated miners' strike in Colorado.
Oh, wow.
Rockefeller was facing intense animosity, but instead of responding with force,
What did he do?
he took a very different approach.
I'm listening.
He decided to connect with the miners on a human level. He visited their homes, met their families, and then gave a pivotal speech.
A speech to the miners.
Yep. And in that speech, he addressed them with genuine respect and empathy.
Interesting. So he chose to connect with them rather than fight them.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Rockefeller's speech is a masterclass in the art of appreciation.
Huh.
He used phrases like red letter day and mutual friendship to create this sense of shared purpose and goodwill.
So he was trying to find common ground.
Exactly.
Uh,
By acknowledging the minor struggles and focusing on common interests, he managed to calm the tension and pave the way for a resolution.
Wow. It's amazing how shifting the focus to shared interests and acknowledging the other side's challenges can be so disarming.
It really can.
Carnegie also shares a lighter anecdote about a department store owner
Okay.
who won back an unhappy customer
Oh, yeah.
simply because his soda clerk made the customer feel appreciated.
What did he do?
The clerk simply complimented the customer's hat, and it totally transformed their attitude.
It's fascinating how even small, genuine gestures of appreciation can have such a huge impact on how people behave.
It all comes down to the fact that everyone, regardless of their position or
Yeah.
what they're going through, wants to feel appreciated.
For sure.
It's a fundamental human need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's often when we feel most frustrated or annoyed that a genuine expression of appreciation
Yeah.
can be the most effective way to de-escalate a situation.
Okay, so we've talked about genuine interest and appreciation. Now let's shift gears to the importance of understanding others' perspectives,
Right.
even if we don't necessarily agree with them.
This is crucial.
Yeah.
Carnegie argues that if you truly want to influence someone, you first need to understand their point of view,
Yeah.
even if it's different from your own.
He uses the example of a salesman who landed a huge order for upholstery fabric
I remember that one.
by simply listening to his client's concerns and making an effort to understand their needs.
It's so important.
The client had been hesitant and unsure, but once the salesman put aside his own agenda
Right.
and tried to see things from the client's perspective, the resistance vanished.
It's about building bridges instead of walls.
I like that Carnegie even provides a simple but effective technique for developing empathy.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
He suggests asking yourself, how would I feel if I were in their shoes?
That's a great point. That question can help you step outside your own biases and see the world through someone else's eyes.
Exactly. And this connects beautifully to the work of psychologists like Kenneth M. Good,
Oh, yes.
who emphasizes the importance of considering multiple perspectives
Right.
for both personal and professional success.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So far, we've covered the power of genuine interest, appreciation, and understanding.
We have.
But what about concrete techniques for getting people to cooperate?
Oh, yeah. Let's get into that.
Carnegie has a whole section dedicated to these techniques,
Awesome.
and they all revolve around fostering mutual respect and understanding.
Okay. I'm ready for this.
One of the most memorable techniques is to start with praise
Okay.
and honest appreciation.
Give me an example.
A great example of this is when Charles Schwab saw employees smoking right under a no smoking sign.
Oh, no.
Instead of yelling at them, he offered each of them a cigar and asked them to smoke outside. He
Really?
acknowledged they broke the rule, but chose to focus on appreciation and respect.
That is brilliant. I wish I could handle tricky situations with that kind of grace.
Yeah.
I'm more likely to, well, let's just say I have room for improvement.
We all do.
But that leads perfectly into another technique, calling attention to mistakes indirectly.
Yes.
Carnegie tells a story about Calvin Coolidge
Okay.
and how he handled correcting his secretary's punctuation.
Ooh, I want to hear this one.
Coolidge cleverly started by complimenting his secretary's appearance
Smart.
and then subtly suggested that she be a bit more careful with her punctuation.
Very subtle.
He got his point across without making her feel embarrassed or defensive.
That's a good boss.
It's incredible how you can correct behavior without causing resentment.
It is.
And then there's the power of admitting your own faults before criticizing others.
That's a tough one.
Carnegie tells a story about an engineer
Well.
who successfully negotiated a rent reduction
Oh, wow.
by praising his landlord and then humbly admitting he couldn't afford the higher rent.
That's clever.
By acknowledging his own limitations, he created an atmosphere of empathy that led to a positive outcome.
Sometimes the best way to influence someone is to show a little vulnerability yourself.
That's counterintuitive, but it makes sense.
It proves that true influence isn't about wielding power, but about building trust and rapport.
Okay, what else?
Carnegie also highlights the importance of asking questions instead of barking out orders.
Instead of being like, do this, do that.
Exactly. It's about empowering people to find their own solutions rather than imposing your will on them.
I see.
It encourages creativity and makes people feel more invested in the outcome.
And then there's the concept of letting the other person save face,
Oh, yeah.
even when they're clearly in the wrong.
This is all about empathy and respect.
Yeah.
We all have egos. And when those egos are bruised, it becomes much harder to be open to reason or change.
That's so true.
This doesn't mean condoning bad behavior.
Right.
It's about addressing the issue without publicly humiliating someone.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you have any examples of that?
Absolutely. Carnegie talks about Charles Steinmetz, a brilliant electrical engineer
Oh, okay.
who wasn't the best manager.
Oh,
General Electric wanted to remove him from his managerial role
I hate
without causing offense.
So what did they do?
They created a prestigious new title for him, consulting engineer,
Okay.
and subtly shifted his responsibilities.
Oh, that's smart.
It was a stroke of genius.
Yeah.
They recognized his value while addressing the managerial issues.
So they allowed him to save face, which preserved his dignity and his relationship with the company.
I love that. Speaking of preserving dignity, let me talk about one of my favorite principles, the power of encouragement.
Yes.
Carnegie firmly believes that encouragement is far more effective than criticism
Absolutely.
when it comes to helping people improve.
And he's absolutely right. Criticism often leads to defensiveness and resentment,
True.
but encouragement inspires growth and self-improvement.
For sure.
Carnegie shares a really inspiring story
Ooh, I love this story.
about Clarence M. Jones's son, David,
Oh,
who was initially labeled brain damaged, but ended up exceeding expectations academically.
wow.
David had a lot of trouble learning, especially math.
Oh, no.
His father, Clarence, could have easily given up on him
Right.
or focused on his shortcomings,
Yeah.
but he didn't. Instead, he chose a path of unwavering encouragement and positive reinforcement.
That's great.
He used flashcards to help David master basic math facts, and every time David showed even the slightest
I
improvement,
bet he was so proud.
Clarence would make a big celebration out of it.
He understood the power of positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
By focusing on David's progress, no matter how small,
Yeah.
he fostered a sense of self-belief and made learning fun for him.
Hmm.
This ties into modern research in psychology and neuroscience.
Really?
Studies have shown that positive reinforcement activates reward centers in the brain,
It's interesting.
which is a huge boost to motivation and learning.
The results speak for themselves. David went from struggling to consistently making the honor roll.
Wow, good for him.
He even won awards at science fairs.
What a turnaround.
It's incredible what a difference a belief in someone can make.
It highlights the incredible power of self-belief, and it shows that even small improvements deserve to be recognized and celebrated.
I love that. And Carnegie gives this great piece of advice when it comes to encouraging others. Make the fault seem easy to correct.
That's good advice.
It's all about framing.
Yeah.
When we present challenges as surmountable, we inspire hope and a willingness to try.
For sure.
It's about focusing on solutions instead of dwelling on the problems.
Okay, now let's dive into a technique that's sometimes misunderstood, appealing to nobler motives.
Okay.
Some might see this as manipulation, but Carnegie emphasizes that it's about recognizing the inherent goodness in people.
I like that.
It's about believing that deep down most people truly want to do the right thing, even if their actions sometimes contradict that.
He tells a story about a landlord dealing with a difficult tenant
Okay.
who was threatening to break his lease.
Oh, no.
The landlord could have taken a hardline, threatening legal action,
Yeah,
but he didn't. He chose a more empathetic route.
good for him.
He listened to the tenant's grievances and acknowledged how difficult it can be to find a new apartment.
It can be really tough.
And without even being asked, the landlord offered to reduce the rent, eventually reaching a solution that worked for everyone.
By appealing to the tenant's sense of fairness and understanding, he not only kept a tenant, but also fostered goodwill.
Exactly. It's a reminder that even in tough situations, there's often a win-win solution
Yes.
if we're willing to look for it.
Absolutely.
This reminds me of that famous quote by J. Pierpont Morgan.
Which one?
A person usually has two reasons for doing a thing, one that sounds good and a real one.
Exactly. We all want to see ourselves as good and ethical people. By appealing to those nobler motives, we encourage others to live up to their own best selves.
Now let's explore one of the most powerful tools in Carnegie's arsenal,
Okay.
making people feel important.
I like this one.
And doing it sincerely. This goes beyond flattery. It's about recognizing and acknowledging that inherent worth and dignity of
Absolutely,
the
yeah.
individual.
Have you ever had someone remember your name
Yeah.
when you didn't think they would?
Oh, yeah.
Or remember a detail about your life that made you feel seen?
Oh, absolutely. It makes such a difference.
That's because it shows that you're not just another face in the crowd. You're valued as an individual.
I see.
And that's exactly what Carnegie's getting at here.
He tells a story about a man
Okay.
who wanted to interview the notoriously tight-lipped president of a large corporation.
That sounds like a challenge.
He had heard this president was an avid stamp collector
Oh, really?
with a 12-year-old son. So instead of launching into a business pitch,
How did you do?
he asked about the president's stamp collection.
That's clever. I bet that caught his attention.
It did. The president spent a good half hour excitedly talking about his hobby and his son. The ice was broken, and the man got all the information he needed for his article.
That's a great example of how connecting with people on a personal level
Yeah,
and making them feel valued can open doors.
it really is. And Carnegie goes even further to say that the deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated.
It's so true.
I think that's absolutely true. We all want to feel like we matter, that our
Yeah.
contributions are recognized, and that our presence makes a difference.
And one of the simplest ways to convey that appreciation
Yeah.
is through a genuine smile. It's a universal language of kindness and goodwill.
A smile can disarm hostility, build rapport, and create a more positive atmosphere.
It really can.
It's such a small gesture, but it has immense power.
Carnegie even quotes an unknown author who describes it perfectly.
How does he put it?
It costs nothing but creates much. It enriches those who receive without impoverishing those who give. It happens in a flash, and the memory of it sometimes lasts forever.
That's beautiful. And he shares a story about a department store that used a smile to boost morale and create a more welcoming environment for customers.
Oh, wow.
They even put up a sign that read, "The value of a smile. It costs nothing, but creates much. It enriches those who receive without impoverishing those who give."
I love that.
It's a simple but powerful reminder that kindness and appreciation are priceless.
Exactly. So if you're looking to win friends and influence people, a good place to start is by smiling more often.
It's a small change that can have a ripple effect, making the world a little brighter.
It can.
Now, we've focused a lot on understanding others,
We have.
but Carnegie also provides some great insights into how to present ourselves in a way that inspires trust and respect.
He stresses the importance of remembering that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language.
Oh, that's so true. Hearing our own name spoken makes us feel recognized and valued.
It tells us we're not just part of the background noise. We're individuals who matter.
I like that Carnegie then goes into the art of being a good conversationalist.
Oh, yes.
And his advice boils down to this: be more interested than interesting.
Yeah. That's a brilliant insight.
Too often we try to impress others with our knowledge or what we've accomplished.
Yeah.
But the real key to engaging conversation is being genuinely interested in the other person.
He mentions a journalist who interviewed hundreds of celebrities and realized that many people fail to make a good impression because they just don't listen.
They don't
They're
listen.
so focused on what they're going to say next that they miss the chance to connect with the person right in front of them.
And this applies to all our relationships, not just celebrities. Our
Yeah.
colleagues, our friends, our families.
Probably.
We need to remember to truly listen.
Active listening is a skill that can be learned,
It is.
and it's one of the most valuable tools we have for building strong, meaningful relationships.
So how do we become better listeners?
It starts with being present in the moment, putting down those distractions and giving the speaker your undivided attention.
Okay.
Ask clarifying questions, reflect back what you've heard, and show that you understand how the speaker is feeling.
It's about making a conscious effort to connect.
Exactly. Carnegie also highlights the importance of talking in terms of the other person's interests.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It takes effort. You have to step outside your own preoccupations
Yeah.
and tune into what matters to the other person.
Okay, I'm trying to think of an example.
He tells a story about a man who was trying to land a big order of upholstery fabric for his company.
Okay.
He wasn't getting anywhere until he discovered that his client was passionate about, you guessed it, stamps.
Oh, that's clever, by tapping into the client's passion.
Exactly.
Oh.
By shifting the conversation to the client's hobby,
Mm.
the man was able to build rapport and create a much more receptive atmosphere.
It worked.
It did. They connected, the client warmed up, and the man got the deal.
It's amazing how finding common ground can be such a powerful tool.
It really is. Now let's talk about something that can be particularly difficult, avoiding arguments.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Carnegie argues that winning an argument is often a hollow victory. You might prove your point, but you risk damaging the relationship in the process.
That's so true. Have you ever won an argument and then wished you hadn't?
Oh yeah, all the time.
I think we've all been there.
And Carnegie has a witty little poem that perfectly captures this.
I love his poems.
Here lies the body of William J., who died maintaining his right of way. He was right, dead right as he sped along. But he's just as dead as if he were wrong.
And that's a sobering thought. Being right isn't always the most important thing.
Precisely. Instead of arguing, try to understand the other person's perspective, even if you don't agree with it.
It's hard, though,
It is.
but important.
Remember that everyone is entitled to their own opinion.
Okay.
Trying to force someone to change their mind usually just leads to resistance and resentment.
So instead of saying you're wrong,
Yes.
we should try a gentler approach.
Exactly. Something like,
Give me an example.
I thought otherwise, but I might be wrong. I frequently am. Let's take a look at the facts.
That opens the door for a more collaborative discussion without putting anyone on the defensive.
Exactly. And it fosters a spirit of open-mindedness and mutual respect, which is so much more conducive to finding a solution that works for everyone.
Carnegie also shares a magical phrase that can really help to diffuse tense situations.
Oh yeah, what's that?
He suggests saying, I don't blame you one iota for feeling as you do. If I were you, I would undoubtedly feel just as you do.
That's a powerful statement of empathy. It acknowledges that the other person's feelings are valid.
And by validating their perspective, you create an atmosphere of respect and understanding, which makes it much more likely that they'll be open to hearing your point of view as well.
It's about finding common ground even when you disagree.
Carnegie also stresses the importance of showing respect for the other person's opinions, even when we think they're completely off base.
He wisely points out that telling someone flat out that they're wrong is a surefire way to make them defensive.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He tells an anecdote about a young lawyer who made the mistake of correcting a Supreme Court justice during an argument.
Oh, boy.
Even though the lawyer was technically right, his bluntness created a tense atmosphere and probably hurt his chances of winning the case.
So it's about picking your battles.
It
So
is.
instead of saying you're wrong,
Yeah,
we should try a more diplomatic approach.
exactly.
Something like, I thought otherwise, but I could be mistaken. I often am. Let's look at the facts together.
That's much better. It shows you're open to being wrong and encourages a more collaborative exploration of the issue. Sometimes acknowledging the possibility of our own fallibility can be the most persuasive approach.
And Carnegie tells a fascinating story about Benjamin Franklin
Oh, yeah.
and how he transformed himself from an argumentative young man
He was quite a character.
into a master diplomat.
It's a great story.
Franklin realized that his habit of contradicting people and pushing his own opinions
Right.
was alienating his friends and holding him back. So he made a conscious effort to change.
I admire that.
How did he do that?
He made a rule to avoid direct contradictions and instead used phrases like, I conceive, or it appears to me at present. He learned to acknowledge the validity of other viewpoints, even when he disagreed.
That's quite a shift.
It was.
Yeah.
And it had a huge impact on his life. He became known for his diplomacy and his ability to influence others,
Wow.
which were key to his success as a statesman and inventor.
It's a powerful reminder that humility and a willingness to listen can take you far.
It really is. It's about recognizing that none of us have all the answers,
That's for sure.
and we can learn from people who see things differently.
Okay, so we've talked about avoiding arguments, but what about when we really need to get our point across? How do we make our ideas stick?
Carnegie suggests a technique he calls dramatizing your ideas.
Okay.
He argues that simply stating the facts isn't always enough to persuade people. You need to make your ideas vivid and memorable.
So instead of just throwing information at people, we need to find ways to make it resonate. Do you have any examples of this in action?
Absolutely. Carnegie tells a story about a safety coordinator
Okay.
who was trying to get employees to wear hard hats on a construction site.
Important stuff.
At first, he took a direct, authoritative approach, emphasizing the regulations.
I can imagine that didn't go over too well.
It didn't. He got a lot of pushback. So he switched tactics. He started asking the workers about the fit and comfort of their hard hats.
Okay.
Then he reminded them that the hats were there to protect them from serious injury.
That's a much more relatable approach.
Exactly.
Right.
By shifting the focus from rules to personal safety, he made a huge difference.
That's great.
The workers were more willing to wear their hard hats, not because they were forced to, but because they saw the value in it.
It's about connecting with people on an emotional level. And that brings us to another technique, throwing down a challenge.
Oh, yes.
Carnegie believed that appealing to people's competitive spirit and their desire to prove themselves can be incredibly motivating. It's like tapping into that inner drive we all have to rise to the occasion.
Exactly. He shares a story about a sales manager
Okay.
who was having trouble motivating his team. So he decided to ask them what they expected from him as a leader.
Oh, okay, so he's getting their input.
Right.
Yes.
As they shared their expectations, he wrote them down on a blackboard. Then he turned it around and asked them what he, in turn, could expect from them.
He's putting the ball in their court.
That's right. And it worked. This simple act of engaging them in a dialogue and appealing to their sense of responsibility
Yeah.
totally changed their attitude. They stepped up and sales skyrocketed.
It's fascinating how empowering people can be so much more effective than just giving orders.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It shows that people are often more motivated by intrinsic rewards, the satisfaction of achievement, the recognition of their efforts, and the feeling of belonging to a team. Those are powerful motivators.
Now, all of these techniques are about how to interact with others effectively.
Right.
But Carnegie also talks about the importance of making a good first impression.
That's right. First impressions matter. And one of the most important things you can do is to express a genuine interest in the people you meet.
It goes back to that first principle we talked about.
Exactly. Being genuinely interested in others is the foundation of building strong relationships.
Yeah.
And it all starts with that first encounter.
So how do we do that? How do we show genuine interest when meeting someone for the first time?
It's about being present and engaged.
Mm-hmm.
Put your phone away, make eye contact, and listen attentively.
It's hard these days with all the distractions.
I know, but it's important. Ask questions and really listen to the answers. People can tell when you're truly interested,
I agree.
and it makes them feel valued and respected.
It's about making that connection.
Exactly. And it sets the stage for a positive and productive relationship.
Carnegie also talks about the importance of expressing appreciation.
Oh, yes.
It seems like this theme keeps coming up.
It does. And for good reason. Everyone appreciates feeling appreciated.
Yeah.
It could be as simple as thanking someone for their time or complimenting them on something they've done.
It's about acknowledging the things, big or small, that people do that make a difference.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And when you express appreciation sincerely, it goes a long way in building goodwill and strengthening relationships.
Okay, so we've covered expressing genuine interest and appreciation.
Right.
What else can we do to make a good first impression?
Carnegie emphasizes the importance of remembering people's names.
Oh, that's a good one. It sounds simple,
It does.
but it's incredibly powerful.
It is.
I know that feeling. When someone remembers my name, it makes me feel seen and valued, but I'm terrible at remembering names.
A lot of people are. Do you have any tips?
Please.
When you meet someone, make a conscious effort to repeat their name a few times in conversation.
Okay.
You can also try associating their name with a visual image
Oh, interesting.
or a personal characteristic. The key is to make it meaningful to you
Got it.
so it sticks in your memory.
Those are great tips. I'm definitely going to try that.
I think you'll be surprised at how much of a difference it makes. Remembering someone's name is a sign of respect
It shows you care.
and shows that you're paying attention. It helps to establish a connection right from the start.
So we've talked about being genuinely interested, expressing appreciation, and remembering names. What about those times when you're trying to win someone over to your way of thinking?
Carnegie provides some valuable insights into how to persuade others effectively.
Okay, let's hear.
And it all starts with respecting their opinions,
Even if we completely disagree.
especially if you disagree. Telling someone they're wrong is a surefire way to make them defensive and less receptive to your ideas.
So instead of arguing,
Yes.
we need to find a way to acknowledge their perspective.
Exactly. Carnegie suggests using phrases like,
Okay.
I understand where you're coming from, or I see your point.
Hmm.
It shows that you're listening and you respect their opinion even if you don't share it.
It's about creating a safe space for open dialogue.
It is. And it lays the groundwork for a more persuasive conversation.
Carnegie also talks about the importance of admitting when you're wrong.
That's a tough one.
It might seem counterintuitive, but acknowledging your own mistakes can actually make you more persuasive.
It can.
Yeah, so.
When you're willing to admit you're wrong, it shows that you're humble and open-minded. It makes people more likely to trust you and consider your point of view.
It's about building credibility through honesty.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it demonstrates that you're more interested in finding the truth than in being right all the time.
Which, let's face it, none of us are.
That's for sure. Carnegie also advises us to avoid arguments.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that earlier.
He believes that arguments are rarely productive. They often lead to resentment and damaged relationships.
That's so true.
But what if you feel strongly about something?
Yeah,
Isn't it important to stand up for your beliefs?
absolutely.
Right.
But there's a difference between standing up for your beliefs
Right.
and engaging in a heated argument.
Carnegie suggests finding ways to express your disagreement without being confrontational.
So it's about being assertive but respectful.
Yeah. Exactly. You can state your opinion calmly and clearly without attacking the other person's viewpoint.
And Carnegie also stresses the importance of beginning in a friendly way.
He believes that starting a conversation with a positive and friendly tone
Yeah.
sets the stage for a more productive exchange. It disarms people and makes them more open to what you have to say.
It's like creating a welcoming atmosphere for a conversation.
It is. And it helps to build rapport and establish a foundation of goodwill.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of respecting other people's opinions, admitting when we're wrong, avoiding arguments, and beginning in a friendly way.
Right. What other techniques does Carnegie suggest for persuading others?
Let's hear them.
He recommends getting the other person saying yes, yes, immediately.
What does that mean?
It's about finding common ground and starting the conversation with points that you both agree on.
So you're building momentum.
Exactly. When you get someone saying yes from the start, it creates a more positive and receptive atmosphere.
People are more open to your ideas.
They're more likely to be open to your ideas if they're already in a state of agreement.
Carnegie also advises us to let the other person do a great deal of the talking.
That's a good one.
Why is that?
People are more likely to be persuaded by ideas that they feel they've come up with themselves.
Oh, that makes sense.
So let the other person share their thoughts and opinions. Ask questions and listen attentively.
Okay.
You might be surprised at what you learn.
Yeah.
And it gives them a sense of ownership over the conversation.
It's about making them feel heard and understood.
Exactly. And when people feel like their opinions matter, they're more likely to be open to considering different perspectives.
Carnegie also suggests trying honestly to see things from the other person's point of view.
This goes back to the principle of empathy that we talked about earlier.
It does.
When you make a genuine effort to understand where the other person is coming from, you're more likely to find common ground and reach a mutually agreeable solution.
It's about stepping into their shoes and seeing the world through their eyes.
Exactly. And it's a powerful way to build rapport and understanding.
Carnegie also emphasizes the importance of being sympathetic to the other person's ideas and desires.
This goes beyond just understanding their point of view. It's about acknowledging the validity of their feelings and aspirations.
Yeah.
It's about showing them that you care about what's important to them.
It's about connecting with them on an emotional level.
Precisely. And that emotional connection can be a powerful catalyst for persuasion.
Carnegie also talks about the importance of appealing to the nobler motives.
Oh, yes.
We touched on this earlier, but it's worth revisiting in the context of persuasion.
Absolutely.
When you appeal to someone's nobler motives, you're tapping into their desire to be a good person.
Right.
To make a positive contribution to the world.
It's about reminding them of their best selves.
Exactly. And when you do that, they're more likely to be receptive to your ideas because they align with their own values and aspirations.
For sure.
Carnegie also suggests dramatizing your ideas.
Yes.
We talked about this in the context of safety.
We did.
But how does it apply to persuasion?
When you dramatize your ideas, you're making them more vivid and memorable. You're using storytelling metaphors and analogies
Oh, I see.
to bring your message to life.
It's about painting a picture with words.
Precisely. And when you do that, people are more likely to be engaged and persuaded by your message.
Carnegie also recommends throwing down a challenge.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about this in terms of motivating a sales team.
Right.
But how does it apply to persuasion?
When you throw down a challenge, you're appealing to people's competitive spirit and their desire to achieve. You're giving them something to strive for, a goal to reach.
It's about tapping into their inner drive.
Exactly. And when people are challenged, they're often more motivated to rise to the occasion and prove themselves.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today. From the importance of making a good first impression to the art of persuasion.
We have.
Carnegie's insights are as relevant today as they were when he first wrote this book.
They really are.
Yeah.
And the beauty of his principles is that they can be applied in all areas of our lives, from our personal relationships to our professional endeavors. It's about understanding human nature.
Yes.
And using that knowledge to build stronger, more fulfilling connections.
So before we wrap up, what are some key takeaways that we can apply in our own lives?
Well, first and foremost, remember that people are fundamentally driven by the desire to feel important and appreciated. Yeah. So make a conscious effort to acknowledge their contributions, express your gratitude, and make them feel valued.
It's about shifting our focus from ourselves to others.
Exactly. And when we do that, we open ourselves up to a world of possibilities. We create stronger relationships, build more effective teams, and become more influential leaders.
Carnegie also emphasizes the importance of genuine interest. We've talked about this throughout our conversation, but it's worth reiterating. When you show genuine interest in others, you make them feel seen and heard. You build trust and rapport, and you create a foundation for meaningful connections.
It's about being present and engaged, asking questions and truly listening to the answers. It's about making people feel like their thoughts and opinions matter.
And when you do that, you open the door to a world of understanding and connection.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about.
We've covered a lot of ground already talking about understanding and connecting with others, but what about those times when you need to really get your point across in a compelling way?
That's where Carnegie's principle of dramatizing your ideas comes in.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more.
He says just stating facts isn't always enough to win people over.
Right.
You have to make your ideas come alive, make them memorable.
So it's about the delivery, not just the content.
Exactly.
Do you have an example of that?
He tells this great story about a safety coordinator on a construction site trying to get his workers to wear their hard hats.
Safety, that's important.
He starts out focusing on the regulations, taking a direct, authoritative approach.
I can imagine that didn't go over so well.
You're right, it didn't. There was a lot of pushback.
So what did he do?
He switched tactics. He started asking the workers about the fit of their hard hats, if they were comfortable.
Okay.
Then he reminded them that those hats were there to protect them from serious injuries.
Much better.
Yeah, by shifting the focus from rules to personal safety, He made a big difference.
I see.
The workers were more willing to wear their hard hats, not because they were forced to, but because they saw the value in it for themselves.
That makes sense. It's about connecting with people on an emotional level. And that reminds me of another technique we talked about, throwing down a challenge.
Yes, Carnegie believed that appealing to people's competitive spirit and their desire to prove themselves can be incredibly motivating.
It's like tapping into that drive, we all have to be our best.
Exactly.
No.
He shares a story about a sales manager who was struggling to motivate his team.
Uh-oh.
So he decided to ask them what they expected from him as their leader.
Interesting. So he's getting their input.
Right. As they told him their expectations, he wrote them all down on a blackboard.
Okay. And then
Then he turned it around and asked them what he in turn could expect from them.
he's holding them accountable.
And it worked. This simple act of engaging them in a dialogue and appealing to their sense of ownership completely transformed the team dynamic.
Wow.
Sales went through the roof.
That's amazing. It's so interesting how empowering people can be so much more effective than just giving orders.
It really is. It shows that people are often more motivated by intrinsic rewards, a sense of accomplishment, the recognition of their efforts, than by external pressure.
Now, we've talked a lot about how to interact effectively with others.
We have.
But Carnegie also talks about the importance of how we present ourselves, especially when meeting someone for the first time.
Right. Those first impressions, they really do matter.
They really do, and sometimes I feel like I don't make the best first impression. What are some things we can do to start off on the right foot?
One of the simplest yet most powerful things you can do is express a genuine interest in the people you meet.
I see.
It goes back to that fundamental principle we talked about earlier.
Being genuinely interested, it all comes back to that.
Yes, it's the foundation of building strong relationships. When you show genuine interest, you make people feel seen and heard, and that builds trust and rapport.
Okay, so how do we show that genuine interest, especially when we're meeting someone for the first time?
Be present. Be engaged. Put your phone away. Make eye contact and listen attentively to what they're saying.
It's hard these days with all the distractions.
I know, but it's so important. Ask questions and truly listen to the answers. People can sense when you're really interested.
They can.
And it makes them feel valued and respected.
It's about making that human connection.
Exactly. And it sets the stage for a positive and productive relationship going forward.
Carnegie also mentions the importance of expressing appreciation, which seems to be a recurring theme in his work.
It is, and for good reason. Everyone likes to feel appreciated. It doesn't have to be anything big, just a simple thank you for their time or a sincere compliment on something they've done.
It's about recognizing and acknowledging the things big or small that people do to make a difference.
Exactly. And when you express that appreciation sincerely, it can go a long way in building goodwill and strengthening those connections.
Along with showing genuine interest and appreciation, what else can we do to really nail that first impression?
Carnegie puts a lot of emphasis on remembering people's names.
Oh, that's a good one. It sounds so simple, though.
It is.
But I know how powerful it can be when someone remembers my name. It makes me feel seen and like I matter.
Absolutely.
But I'm terrible with names. Do you have any tips for those of us who struggle with that?
Of course.
Yeah.
When you meet someone, make a conscious effort to repeat their name a few times in the conversation.
Okay.
It can also be helpful to try and associate their name with a visual image or defining characteristic.
I like that. Anything that makes it more memorable.
Exactly.
They could be so forgetful.
I think you'll be surprised how much of a difference it makes. Remembering someone's name is a sign of respect and shows you're paying attention. It helps establish that connection right from the beginning.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. I feel like I have so many new tools for building better relationships.
I'm glad to hear them.
But before we wrap up, I want to touch on something that feels particularly relevant these days: disagreement.
Oh, yes, that's important.
It feels like everywhere we turn, there's conflict and division. How do we navigate those tricky conversations where we might not see eye to eye?
That's a great question, and something Carnegie addresses directly. He believes that the key is to approach disagreements with respect and understanding. Remember, everyone is entitled to their own opinion, even if you completely disagree.
Easier said than done sometimes.
It is. But instead of trying to force your views on someone, try to really understand their perspective.
How do we do that?
Ask yourself, why do they believe what they believe? You might not agree with their reasoning, but at least you'll have a better understanding of where they're coming from.
It's about finding that common ground, that shared humanity, even when we disagree.
Exactly. And when you approach disagreements with that mindset, It can open up a space for genuine dialogue and connection, even if you don't ultimately change each other's minds.
This deep dive has been so insightful. I feel like I have a roadmap for navigating my interactions with more grace and understanding.
I'm so glad to hear that. And remember, these principles are like muscles. The more you use them, the stronger they become.
I love that analogy.
So go out there and practice. You might be surprised at the positive impact you can have on the people around you.
That's a great reminder. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Dale Carnegie's timeless wisdom, what's one thing you hope our listeners take away?
The most important takeaway for me is this. The key to winning friends and influencing people is to shift our focus from me to we. It's about finding common ground, fostering mutual respect, and inspiring those around us to become their best selves. And sometimes it's about remembering we're all just trying to get that calf into the barn.
Now that's an image that will definitely stick with me. Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive. Until next time, keep those conversations flowing, those connections strong, and remember those calves.
Absolutely.